All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of the Backstage Podcast. It is Thursday, the 27th of October, 2022. Thank you for tuning in to another episode. Wasn't planning on doing a second one, that's for sure. But with what happened today, I just had to. In case you were still wondering and or still doubting, the knives are out at the Liberal Party of Quebec. At least it's now official. It's made public. And we should talk about that. It was in the news consistently today. I think it's the only thing that the journalists were talking about. And we're going to talk a little bit about that. And I don't know if we can analyze it or just talk a little bit about what happened, what I think about what happened. Let's get to it. So essentially, today, Dominique Anglade and the Liberal Party were announcing its shadow cabinet. Now, what is a shadow cabinet? I mean, I was never a fan of that terminology because, you know, the Liberal Party isn't in government. They do not have ministers and therefore not a ministerial cabinet. So they call it a shadow cabinet because everyone in opposition is given a responsibility. The official term is the official opposition critic, so that they can question the ministers across the aisle in government. So just to give you an example, we spoke about Pierre Fitzgibbon in the other episode. He's the minister of Economy, Innovation, and Energy. So every opposition party, not only the Liberal Party, but the PQ and the QS as well, they will have to assign an official opposition critic or an opposition critic to question that minister, okay? And because they have these roles, it's kind of like a loose term called the shadow cabinet. So it's like the opposition ministers, if you want, right? But officially the term is the official opposition or opposition critics. And that's what happened. So Dominique Anglade was announcing or was supposed to announce her shadow cabinet. I'm not so sure if the list was leaked yesterday in the night or really early this morning, but essentially what happened is that when the journalists picked up this list, they noticed that there was a name missing from that list, and that's the name of Marie-Claude Nichols. Now, Marie-Claude Nichols, for those who don't know, she gets elected in the riding of Vaudreuil. So Vaudreuil, again, for those who don't know, is in the west of Montreal. It's outside the island. Of course, I think it's part of the greater Montreal region, but it's essentially between Montreal and the Outaouais region. So as you're driving towards Gatineau or eventually to get to Ottawa, you have to cross through Vaudreuil, and that's the region. She was first elected there in 2014. In 2018, I believe she won by the skin of her teeth. We're talking about like maybe a little over 500 votes. Maybe it's not by the skin of her teeth, but it's a slim majority. So if you followed QC Brief with Michael Forin, you know about this riding. We mentioned it several times because we knew going into this election that ended on the 3rd of October that this was going to be among the hardest fought ridings. There was a huge battle given in Vaudreuil. Dominique Anglade went there to campaign, I believe, several times. The party was focused on that riding. The Liberal Party really wanted to win that riding. It did not want that riding to fall to the CAQ. And she did it. She pulled through. She went to bat for the Liberal Party. She gave the battle of her life, Marie-Claude Nichols, and she won that riding. So that's who Marie-Claude Nichols is. And from what we understand, she wasn't on that list. And people were questioning what's going on. Why is Marie-Claude Nichols not on the list? Because keep in mind that the Liberals elected 21 elected members. And the government has 90, of which 30 are ministers. So naturally, everyone that follows politics and everyone that's following what's happening in the National Assembly was expecting every single person in opposition, every one of those 21 members, to get a role, to be given responsibilities, to have to become an official critic of something, because it makes sense. You're only 21, the government has 30, so not only are you getting one responsibility, chances are that a few members of the opposition are going to get 2, 3, or maybe even 4 or more responsibilities, because you need to confront 30 ministers across the aisle, across the floor. So those 21 people need to, to get 30 responsibilities, right? 30 departments. So everyone was hoping, or at least wondering, who was going to get what. So Marie-Claude Nichols' name is missing from the list. And so all the, the questions start coming during the day. And then early in the morning, we find out that there's a meeting of the Liberal parliamentary officers. Now, what are the parliamentary officers? Let's just get these definitions out of the way so you guys can understand exactly what's happening here. So every party has like a close guard, right? So this is the close guard of Dominique Anglade. They're called the parliamentary officers. Basically, it's the House leader, the deputy House leader, the caucus chair, and the party whip. So those four people, along with Dominique Anglade, they make up the officers, or the parliamentary officers. So this group meets, and they come out to announce that Marie-Claude Nichols was ejected from the Liberal Party caucus and will be sitting as an independent MNA. Reason? For having refused to take the positions that Dominique Anglade was giving to her. Pause. I'm waiting for reactions. And yes, it's as unbelievable as that. What exactly happened? Obviously, we don't have all the information. I wish to God I was a fly in that wall, in that caucus, to see exactly what happened. But in appearance, it again reflects on the awful leadership of Dominique Anglade. Now, before we get to that, because obviously, it's headed in that direction, right? This whole episode is going to reflect on that. But here's what we find out that happened. Soon after the elections ended, Marie-Claude Nichols, and especially now, probably in the last couple of days or weeks, as Dominique Anglade was working on composing this team, who's going to get what, and who's going to, what role she was going to give to each and every one of them, Marie-Claude Nichols indicated her interest of being third deputy speaker of the House. Now, we're going to get to the definitions again, because I want to get that out of the way. I want you guys to understand exactly what all this means. But essentially, Dominique Anglade refused to give that to her, and instead gave her the responsibility as official opposition critic, responsible for the transport file. So now, what is the speaker? Okay, and what's the first, second, and third deputy speaker? So for everyone following what happens in the National Assembly, normally you guys probably listen into question period. There's one guy sitting in the throne in between the parties, and this guy's job is to be neutral first and foremost, and he makes sure that everyone respects the rules, that there's cohesion in the parliament, that that the question period unfolds in a humane and respectful way based on the rules and regulations of the National Assembly. Now, sorry. So he chairs usually the question period, and then after the question period, there's obviously more deliberations that happen in Parliament, and he has deputy speakers that replace him on a rotating schedule. So first, second, and third deputy speaker. Now, traditionally, usually, the speaker, the first deputy speaker and second deputy speaker come from the government, and the third deputy speaker is usually given to the opposition. Now, I say usually because very rarely the government is going to pass on the speaker position, and that normally, or not normally, but the rare times that I think it has happened is because it's in a minority government situation, and the difference is so slim between the governing party and the opposition that you don't want to lose those votes, right? Because you have to know that once you get named as Speaker of the House, you lose your right to vote. You become neutral. You become objective. So in a situation where the governing party has a very slim has a very slim difference between the opposition, you don't want to lose those votes. So you just throw that to the opposition and say, here, you take the speaker position and you lose a vote. Doesn't happen very often. But of course, these are all strategies in the parliament. Forget about that. Usually the speaker, first and second deputy speaker, go to the government, and the opposition takes the third deputy speaker. So what happened, from what we find out, is that Marie-Claude Nichols wanted that position, but France Benjamin also wanted that position, and Dominique Anglade preferred to support France Benjamin. Who's France Benjamin? Well, he was elected. He's not newly elected. He got in 2018 for the very first time, but France Benjamin is someone that comes from the municipal political world. And he was also the first black person to be named Speaker of the City Council for the City of Montreal. So he has the experience as a Speaker of, it's not really a parliament, it's City Council, but it's kind of like a mini parliament, right? It's a Montreal City Council. But he understands. He has the understanding of how things work, what he needs to do as a speaker, his responsibilities. So he has that knowledge. So I have nothing to say against France Benjamin. I know him personally. Maybe he's the right position. Maybe he's the right guy for it. I don't know. But in terms of experience in the opposition, he's clearly the only one that has it. Okay? He's the only one that's done that job. And keep in mind, you don't have that many older people elected in opposition. Most of them abandoned ship. The only more senior MNAs is Filomena Roti that came in 2018, and then the rest came in 2014 or 2018. So I think that choice makes sense for France Benjamin. Regardless, why would you eject someone from caucus because they refused to take in the responsibilities that you were giving them? That was the big question that pretty much preoccupied every single journalist today from morning up until late at night. The amount of analyses and commentaries that I heard is just mind-boggling. But that's what happened, all right? So she wanted that position. Dominique Anglade did not support her. She supported France Benjamin, and she was given transport. Now, from what we also found out, was that probably Dominique Anglade asked her colleagues to give her 3-4 choices that she could juggle around with and kind of see if how she could fix the puzzle. And that's what Marie-Claude Nichols did. She gave her 4 choices aside from the one that she wanted, the priority one, which was to be the 3rd deputy speaker of the House. So she gave that, and then her fourth choice, the last choice on the list, was transport. So Dominique Anglade not only didn't support her to be the 3rd deputy speaker of the House, which she can do. She's Dominique Anglade has she's free to support anyone she wants. But not only did she do that, she gave her last choice, the last one. So people are wondering, what the hell is going on in this caucus? Did something happen between Marie-Claude Nichols and Dominique Anglade, where Dominique Anglade felt that she had to put her foot down and say, yeah, fuck, I'll show you. Yeah, what's the last thing that you want on that list? Well, that's what I'm giving you. Is that what happened? We don't know. But we're going to get to all of that. Now, the last thing I want you guys to keep in mind, especially for the positions of speakers, the speakers in the House, it's not as simple as I described it. It's not as if, we choose this person and you guys choose that person. Normally, the speakers in the House, they get elected by their peers. It's an election process, and it's all 125 people that vote on who they want. And usually it's people that are well respected, people that have demonstrated, their skill to assume this responsibility effectively, right? But more often than not, what ends up happening is that, the parties talk amongst themselves. There's usually never any fighting. So the government says, listen, who wants, we're going to support so-and-so for speaker. We're going to support so-and-so for 1st and 2nd deputy speaker. Is everyone okay? Yeah, good, perfect. We're good. So knowing that there's no one else that's going to contest these seats, there's no vote. I mean, they get in by default, right? Same thing for the opposition. Usually they talk it amongst themselves. Who wants it? Okay, we're supporting this person. Everyone's on board. Yes, thank you, good. So when the time comes and they call out, the positions, there's usually just one person. I'm interested for the speaker position. Anyone else? No? Okay, cool. Boom. Speaker of the House. Who's interested for the 1st deputy speaker? Anyone? One person? Okay, you're in. So there's never really any voting procedure that happens, but it's usually agreed upon between the parties, and it's respectful. right, between the two. Now, here's an interesting analysis I heard today. It's very possible that Dominique Anglade felt threatened that by not supporting Marie-Claude Nichols and keeping her in the caucus, that come this period where they would be selecting the third deputy speaker, Dominique Anglade and and most of the people would say, yeah, Franz Benjamin from our end, but then Marie-Claude Nichols would be like, whoa, hold on a second, I also want it, and force a vote in Parliament. Now, if you're looking at this happening and you're in the government or you're in the other opposition parties and you're thinking, okay, something's going on in that caucus, right? I mean, they weren't able to come up with one name, and then you have two people in that same party that are contesting that same seat. Let's give it to Dominique Anglade, and you know what? Forget about who she's supporting. Let's give our support to Marie-Claude Nichols over here and stick it to Dominique Anglade. You know? Very possible that Dominique Anglade felt threatened. So this is one analysis that was talked about a lot in the news today. And it's very possible. So the only way to avoid that from happening from her side was to eject her entirely from the caucus and avoid that whole embarrassing moment. And to get Franz Benjamin to sit as the third deputy speaker. It is absolutely mind-boggling. I have been thinking about this the entire day. Now, Dominique Anglade still hasn't commented on this. She went into hiding the entire day. She sent out Enrico Ciccone. Enrico Ciccone is the caucus chair. So he's the guy presiding the caucus meetings. And he's obviously part of the parliamentary officers. And he's the one. She sent him to bat. She's like, you go and you explain what happened. You're the caucus chair. You made that decision. You go tell them what happened. Now, what Enrico Ciccone did was another bizarre thing. Now, Enrico Ciccone, for those wondering, he came in 2018. He was a brand new MNA, but he's a very well-respected member of Parliament. Everyone, across the board, people love him. He speaks well. He's fair. He's very collaborative. In general, people look up to him. So I have absolutely nothing to say about the position that he was given as a caucus chair. I think it's a great choice. But he came out to explain and to justify their decision. And, for those who don't know, Enrico Ciccone was a former NHL player. He played hockey for the Canadiens and for other teams and, made this transition as an elected official. And he gave this strange example about how it works in a hockey team. And he came out and said, well, listen, this is kind of like coaching a team. And you want your team to perform, and everyone has to be on board. And, they need to respect the coach. And, when you're given a position, you got to play that position. If not, you're benched. You're out. And it was this kind of my way or the highway kind of approach. And automatically, in the back of my mind, all these red flags started coming up. And I was like, what are you talking about, man? First of all, you can't compare hockey with the parliament. That's a bad comparison. But you know what? I'll give it to you because that's where you come from and that's the world that you know. Granted, I'll give it to you. But here's the thing that you probably did not take into account. And I'm not the biggest hockey, fanatic. I mean, I love the Habs. I watch them here and there. And what I've come to understand is that in a hockey team, when things aren't going well, the first head to roll is not the player that gets paid millions of dollars. It's not the player, on whom the team has invested millions of dollars. The first head to roll is the coach. You know why? Because it's his job to demonstrate that he has the skill, the ability, and the leadership to make this team work. And if your players don't work well together, well, it's up to you to figure it out. Change them lines. Bring them, switch them, wings. Bring them to the second line, third line. Figure it out. That's your job as a coach, and you're paid to make it work. And that's the analogy that you need to compare in politics. not the other one, not the my way or the highway kind of thing. If you're not going to play, you're benched. It doesn't work like that in politics. And you know why it doesn't work like that in politics? Because you didn't go out and fish those players and hire them to play for you. In politics, the players are there because the people selected them to be there. So you need to respect the electorate that chose that individual to sit in that chair. And it's not up to you to decide if it's your way or the highway. So the right comparison that needs to be made here is, does the leader, quote unquote, the coach, have the ability, the skill, and the leadership to make things work? And I've gone on record here as well, when we did the QC brief of Michael Forian, where we consistently questioned ourselves on Dominique's campaign, on Dominique Anglade's campaign, and her leadership going forward, and if she would be able to maintain it after the expected disastrous result that she got. The expected disastrous result. We knew that this campaign was going to be disastrous for the Liberal Party. We knew there was no hope of getting more than what they got. In fact, I thought they were going to get less. So that's what the comparison needs to be done. That's what kind of comparison needs to be made over here. So if Dominique Anglade can't figure out how to make the caucus work with 21 people. And I get there's egos flying left, right, and center. I know how it is. I've seen it. But you're the leader. And you only have 21 people to figure out. How convincing are you going to be to your members about wanting so desperately to govern, which theoretically you'd require a much bigger, a much larger team, if you cannot figure out 21 people? You can't figure that out. You cannot, I'm not going to say make people happy. You can't always make everyone happy, but you cannot figure out a solution where your caucus is going to be ready at the end of November when Parliament goes in session. That's the big question here. That's a big question. Now, in all fairness, let's just talk a little bit about these positions that are given to these M&As. Usually, it is extremely uncommon for the M&As not to accept the responsibilities that are given to them. Usually, it's this very humbling moment, this experience where you humbly accept their responsibilities, and then traditionally, everyone goes on their social media. Thank you so much, so and so, Dominique Anglade. Thank you, Premier Legault, for trusting me with these responsibilities. You just take it. You take it, whether you like it or not. If your leader gives you a responsibility, you say thank you and you take it. Now, have people refused? Of course, they've refused in the past. Chances are that maybe in the future too, people might refuse. The rare times that happens, it usually comes from highly experienced politicians, people that, politicians that have been there for a long time and they've established their credibility and their influence either in the party or within their caucus. Or if it's a high profile M&A, we talked about Pierre Fitzgibbon the other day. We know from the information that we got that he probably went to Premier Legault and told him, listen, I want you to split the Department of Energy and Natural Resources and give me energy. Let's bring energy into under the economy umbrella. Legault did it. He's not going to say no to Pierre Fitzgibbon. So unless you have that profile, unless you have that kind of influence, you normally just accept what you're given, whether you like it or not. Which brings us to the next point. Was this move calculated by Marie-Claude Nichols? Before we talk about that, before we talk about whether or not it was calculated by Marie-Claude Nichols, let's just address the elephant in the room over here. Absolutely nobody believes those planned lines that every single liberal MNA has been regurgitating to the effect that everyone is happy, we are united, we are behind Dominique Anglade, we're going to be the most effective opposition. The electorate trusted us with their vote, and we're going to show them that we have what it takes. You know, all those lines that Dominique Anglade has been trying to sell from the beginning, from the end of the election. Nobody believes that. Nobody believes that. And the more Dominique Anglade keeps that rhetoric, the more she and her caucus keep looking delusional. Nobody believes that this caucus is united. Nobody believes that everyone is supporting Dominique Anglade. And I understand it's politics, it's about image, and everyone, regardless of what happens behind closed doors, when those doors open, you got to put that smile on and show that we're all together, we're all a team. What Enrico Ciccone said, we are one team. We want everyone to collectively put in the effort to get us into that new direction that we want to take the party, or blah, 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 whatever he said. The reality, though, is that not everyone is happy, and nobody believes that everyone is happy and everyone is united. So I think at some point they should just stop saying that. They look ridiculous. They look ridiculous. So going back to Marie-Claude Nichols, was this a calculated move? Was this, her opportunity to stand up and say, listen, I was never happy from the fucking beginning. You messed up this election. You almost made me lose my riding. I wanted by the skin of my teeth. You need to go, and I'm going to make a stand. I'm not happy about us being sold on the idea of, acting that we're united and blah, 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 and all that stuff. And she thought, you know what? This is the position that I want. And in her mind, thinking that if she doesn't give it to me, no problem. I'm going to make a scene. Maybe that was calculated. I'm not so sure, however, if she factored in the possibility of Dominique Anglade ejecting her from her caucus. Probably not. Probably not. She thought, you know what? I'm going to play hardball. And I'm just going to refuse everything she gives me if she doesn't give me what I want. And then automatically it will force the media to question that. And that will get the ball rolling on Dominique Anglade's leadership. Maybe that's what she thought. Regardless of what she thought, though, I mean, if we get back to Dominique Anglade, how do you justify this? This is the strangest thing that I have seen. And I've seen people get ejected from caucus for different reasons, Some really serious ones and some not that serious ones. This is probably among the less serious reasons. Someone that doesn't want to get the responsibilities. And if you think of it from a PR perspective, it is so much easier for Dominique Anglade to have someone in her caucus with zero responsibilities, because you can very easily figure out a way to explain that, than to kick someone out of the caucus and then have to explain to everyone that, no, we're united. Yeah, everyone is happy. Because you should know that is done. As soon as you do that, you can't come out and say that we're united anymore. That's done. It's over. Like, that's the last move that you play. Like, there's nothing else to do. Like, you're literally boxed in the corner, and that line, you can no longer use it again. It's finished. There's no way that anyone is going to believe you, if there was anyone that believed you to begin with. But if there were people that believed you that your caucus was united, well, that would pretty much end it there. So strategically, and from a PR perspective, she should have just kept her there and not given her any responsibilities. And from the information that we got from certain media, Marie-Claude Nichols was clear that if she wasn't going to get the third deputy speaker position, she did not want any responsibility. She was going to remain in the caucus with no responsibility. And she was okay with it, apparently, from the information that we got from the media. Marie-Claude Nichols was perfectly fine not getting anything if she would not get that position. So why not just leave it like that? Why not just leave it like that and just come out and say, look, Marie-Claude Nichols made it very clear to us that she wanted deputy speaker position. We all decided on France Benjamin, and she won't have any responsibilities. It's okay, though. Everything is fine. We're united. I don't know if anyone will believe that, but from a communications perspective, it's so much easier to explain that than to explain why you kicked her out and then have to convince people that you're united. What are you, crazy? Nobody's going to believe that now. Just going to take a sip of water. Nobody's going to believe that. You got to be out of your mind. Now, I sent a couple messages to some friends that are elected. Obviously, they're not going to tell me what happened because for those who follow, they know that what happens in caucus stays in caucus, and that is something that is that is holy. It's religious. You don't break that line, But I try to find a few things out, and what I got to understand, kind of the message between the lines was that Marie-Claude Nichols lost her shit. Now, again, did that really happen? Did it not? I don't know. But for someone to get kicked out of caucus, I mean, you need to have something serious happening that you can justify kicking her out. Maybe she did lose her shit. Maybe some words were exchanged that were disrespectful, unacceptable, to the point where, listen, you cannot say these things. I mean, I don't know Marie-Claude Nichols. I've met her a couple times. She seemed like a very sweet woman. Not the kind of woman to act like this. Definitely not. But again, let's keep one thing in mind. The people that are elected in the Liberal caucus had one of the toughest campaigns in the history of this party. And especially when we look at MNAs like Marie-Claude Nichols, who literally went to war to win that riding. She's up to here. Maybe she exploded. Maybe she couldn't maintain it. Maybe she couldn't contain it anymore. Maybe nerves got in the way. Maybe she let it all out. Maybe words were said. Unfortunate words. I don't know. Maybe certain things that she wants to take back. I don't know. But that would definitely be a justifiable reason to get someone out of caucus. And listen, you can't talk like that. You got to be respectful towards your colleagues. Now, did that really happen? I don't know. But again, from the understanding that I got, she lost her shit. Again, do you kick someone out of the caucus? Let me remind everyone that this is not the first time it's happened. I want to bring you back to Marie Montpetit, who was the MNA in Maurice Richard, who was ejected from caucus in the last mandate because apparently she had an aggressive character, an uncollaborative attitude, especially towards her personnel. They kicked her out of caucus, and they didn't bring her back, and she didn't run for re-election, obviously. And we lost Maurice Richard. Now, I know Marie Montpetit personally. I never, ever got that feeling from her towards me, personally now. Do they explode? Do nerves come in the way? It has happened, and it will continue to happen because politics is not easy. It's a tough fucking sport, and the people that work in politics should know that it's tough. And there's egos, there's attitudes, there's nerves. I'm not saying that it should be like that, but it's an environment that is, high pressure, high stress. And it happens. It happens that people explode and they yell and, then they come back to normal and things are okay. Was that happening with Marie Montpetit? I don't know. Again, personally for me, I never saw that. I mean, we had a great relationship with Marie Montpetit, very cordial, very respectful. She was a good MNA. She was a good MNA. She loved her job, and from what I understand, her constituents loved her too. So, and again, there was no justification given. They threw her out. They leaked to the press that there was this this workplace and environment that was unsustainable. Apparently, some of her employees complained, and she's out. She was never given the chance to explain herself. She was never given a forum where this could be debated, or for someone to bring some evidence or what. Nothing. That didn't happen. You're out. You're gone. No justification. Out. On the flip side, you can take an example like Gaëtan Barrette, who in opposition in the last mandate, I think at the beginning of the mandate, he was given the role as official opposition critic to the Treasury Board or Finance, something like that, and he was removed those responsibilities. He wasn't kicked out. He wasn't kicked out. He stayed part of the caucus. So what is going on over here with Marie-Claude Nichols? Just because she refused, you're kicking her out? I don't know. What does this mean? What this means is that the gloves are off. That's what it means. Again, I don't know if this was a calculated move by Marie-Claude Nichols. My personal opinion, I think that she didn't support, or she didn't want to support Dominique Anglade after the pitiful result that the party got after the elections. Maybe she was expecting Dominique Anglade to resign. Maybe. Maybe she wasn't happy with everyone just putting a fake smile, acting like everyone is united, when in reality, there are factions in that caucus that don't like Dominique Anglade. Guaranteed. In fact, Dominique Anglade knows that there's people that are eyeing that job. She knows. She's not dumb. She knows. Now, what I think Marie-Claude Nichols did, maybe this was calculated to a certain extent. Maybe in her mind, like I said before, she thought, this is what I'm going in with, and if I don't get it, it'll be that opportunity for me to get that ball rolling. I'm going to make a stand. It's going to get leaked. The media is going to be all over it. It's going to bring her leadership to question. And then, whatever happens. She probably thought that, you know what? I'll be a backbencher in opposition. Worst case scenario, she won't give me anything. I'll be okay with it. Again, it'll reflect badly on her, not on me. I'm not so sure she had calculated the possibility of getting ejected from caucus. Now, the worst case scenario right now is that Marie-Claude Nichols comes out publicly to say exactly what happened. Because don't forget, she's an independent now. She can do whatever she wants. There was a lot of saliva that was spent on this topic today. There was a lot of ink that went on paper on this today. There was a lot of tweets that went out on this today. There was a lot of shit happening on this today, guys. But we haven't heard from Dominique Anglade. We haven't heard from Marie-Claude Nichols. If I were Marie-Claude Nichols, I would probably not take it further. If I were Marie-Claude Nichols, I would. And if this is a situation that surprised her, right? If this is not something that she had calculated and she was thrown out of the caucus, if I were in her shoes, I would just cool it down a bit. Just, let the dust settle. Don't make any bold statements. Figure out a couple of lines to say, and that's it. Why? Because what happens now is that the ball will start rolling. That little snowball is down the mountain now, and it's rolling, and it's going to get bigger. So who knows what might happen? So you don't want, as Marie-Claude Nichols now, you don't want to distance yourself further from your colleagues, because in the eventuality where in the next couple of months, Dominique Anglade decides this is not working, I'm out, maybe your caucus is going to reintegrate you. But if you go all out now as an independent MNA, and you're like, this is what she did, this is what I said, here's who's against her, la, 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 and you play that game, you're never coming back in that caucus. So your political career just ended. You're going to complete your mandate, and in 2026, you're gone because you can't run independent unless, I don't know, unless you go into the CAC. Maybe the CAC is going to take you. They wanted that riding. Maybe she'll cross the floor. I doubt it. I doubt that she wants to do that. Marie-Claude Nichols is a liberal. She's a loyal liberal. And I think right now is a very delicate stage. She needs to play her cards right. In her shoes, I would accept what happened. I would come on and say, look, I respect the decision my caucus made. I disagreed with certain things. They thought the right decision was to kick me out. I don't understand it. Maybe Dominique Anglade can give you a better explanation. From here on, I'll assume my role as an independent MNA. Period. That's it. That's your only statement that you need to say. That's it. That's it. And then just wait to see what happens. If you keep it cool, there are chances that you may reintegrate the caucus. If you go all out, it's done. It's a done deal. So I think she should just end the battle right there and focus on winning the war. Okay, getting back into the caucus. Now, with respect to Dominique Anglade, this was a very bad decision. Hands down, the worst decision she could have made. I mean, Parliament isn't even in session. They haven't even started yet. Parliament is opening up at the end of November, and you've already ejected someone from your caucus. Now, keep it, and we've spoken about this in other episodes. The amount of stress this woman is going through right now, she's on survival mode, okay? She's clinching on to power. She's desperately trying to keep that job as the party leader. It's not looking promising right now for her. But in addition to all that, the weight that she has right now on her shoulders, first and foremost, on figuring out if she's going to grant official party status to Quebec Solidaire and the Parti Québécois. Secondly, is she going to allow these parties, these two same parties, to sit, having not completed their swearing-in ceremony, the oath? They only did half the oath. So that's missing. Technically, by the rules, if you don't swear in, you cannot sit as an MNA. So are you going to allow them? Are you going to make an exception to come in? On both those issues, I would say no. And I think I made that clear. I wouldn't grant them official party status, and I wouldn't authorize them to sit in the parliament if they don't complete their oath. And again, it's not because I'm a monarchist or anything like that. It's because rules are rules. And if you want to make changes to the swearing-in ceremony, that's fine. Table a motion, table a bill, let's discuss it. But in order for that to change, you need a law. And if to table a law, you need to be sitting in the House. And to sit in the House, well, you got to follow the rules that are in place at the moment. So you need to complete your swearing-in ceremony in order to come in. And then we'll discuss. And if we agree on changing it, then we'll change it. That's fine. Next time around, we don't swear allegiance to the king. But rules are rules. You need to be. We went over this in the last episode. So I wouldn't grant them, and I hope she doesn't either. So she has that decision to make, granting them official status, allowing them to sit in the House. This is deadly because she's going to have to come out now and justify what happened. She's going to have to answer to this. So that's the heaviest thing right now. And then the fourth, which she has to juggle with now, is her own survival as the party leader. I can guarantee you that she wasn't expecting this. I can guarantee it. Now, did she do this? Did she use Marie-Claude Nichols as an example to the other people? Because like I said before, guys, there's no question that Dominique Anglade knows that there's people in her caucus that want her job. Was this an example to the other ones? You guys shut your mouth, You stand against me, that's what happens. Is that the type of leadership the Liberal Party wants to have? I don't know. A leader that leads with fear and not a leader that leads with, the example. All that positive stuff. Maybe she used her as an example. Put her foot down and say, listen, I'm the boss. If you guys are thinking whatever you're thinking, look what happened to Marie-Claude Nichols. Look what happened. So, know your role, do your job, and we'll be fine. And that's very possible. And that's very possible. And the reason why that's very possible is because her closed circle is still around. She's keeping these people in these important posts. For what reason? I don't know. Does it make sense that after this humiliating defeat that the party just got in these elections, that your chief organizer is still in place? Does it make sense? Not in my book. Right? Is Dominique Anglade keeping them there purposely for a reason? Does she want her close guard close because she wants to monitor what's happening around her? Is she panicking? Is she worried? What's going on in that caucus? One thing's for sure, now we know that it's not that it's not united. One thing's for sure. That's one thing that's for sure. So whatever bullshit they came out and told us 1 week ago, 1 week ago, the Liberal Party was sworn in. 1 week ago. 7 days ago, they were sworn in. They had a caucus meeting and they all came out smiling, saying, we're united, we're behind Dominique Anglade. 7 days later, this drama happens. Are you really united? Come on, guys. Come on, who are you kidding here? So obviously, there's a problem in the caucus. It is now public, right? How much further is Marie-Claude Nichols going to take this? Who knows? I'm curious to see how this is going to evolve, because there are so many moving parts right now, excluding this. There are so many things right now that Dominique Anglade is having to decide on, that is going to determine her leadership skills, her leadership ability, and ultimately her staying on as a leader. That this coming on top was definitely not something that she wanted to deal with. This is not the way that they wanted to start this session. That's obviously, we can all agree on that. So here's what I think is happening at this point. Right after the campaign, there's automatically, I think, in my opinion, probably two groups that were formed. The groups probably of newly elected MNAs who were recruited directly from Dominique Anglade and have this kind of loyalty towards her, that regardless are backing her and they're really supporting her. And then you have another group of MNAs who are probably there from before, and there's not, there's not that many, about 10 or 11, about half the cabinet, who probably either doesn't know if they want to support her, either wants to wait to see how she performs. In any case, that group was silent. Let's take it easy. Let's all see how things evolve. Let's see where the ball rolls. What happened though now with Marie-Claude Nichols is that she just gave a voice to a lot of people that had decided to stay silent and to wait. Like I said, the gloves are off, man. The gloves are off, and it already started with Lise Thériault. Lise Thériault, for those who don't know, was elected in 2003 for the first time in Anjou, the riding of Anjou. Later, it became Anjou Louis Riel. And in 2018, she announced that it was going to be her last mandate. She did it up until 2022. She didn't seek re-election. She was very much involved. I think she was heavily involved also in the campaign. She worked hard to get that candidate elected. Unfortunately for the Liberal Party, that riding was lost to the CAQ. Lise Thériault isn't a nobody. She's not a nobody. Lise Thériault was a cabinet minister. She had important files. She had important departments. She carried a lot of weight in that cabinet, in the ministerial cabinet. This is a person that opened her mouth and everyone listened to what she had to say. She was a very influential person in the Liberal Party and in the caucus. She was a veteran that was very well respected. And she came out today in the news. They interviewed her, and she was livid. She could not believe what was happening. She said, "This is not the party that I supported all these years. These aren't the values that we help promote. And what is going on? What's wrong with Dominique Anglade? How can she kick her out of her caucus because she did not agree with a position? Like, that's not the Liberal Party that I know. And she's absolutely right. I mean, because someone disagrees, you throw them out. So either there's something more that happened that justified that. Either Dominique Anglade has a lot on her shoulders and has lost control of the situation. I don't see any other alternative here. I don't see any other alternative. And the fact that Lise Thériault now, in my opinion, is going to become the person in front of the pack leading probably the charge against Dominique Anglade is serious. Let me remind you guys that in the leadership race, Lise Thériault was not in Dominique Anglade's camp. She had supported Alexandre Cusson. So, did Lise Thériault find an opportunity for her to put her foot in and say, you know what? All right, let's go. Come on, the gloves are off. Let's do it. This is big. This is big. And like I told you guys, there are certain changes that are happening up high at the top. In that same article that announced this today in La Presse, Tommy Chouinard, he also mentions 2 senior staffers being shown the door. So we're talking about Julie White and Charles Robert. We spoke about those 2 again in the QC brief. If you guys remember the first week of the campaign, it was just a mess. The Liberal Party hadn't completed 125 candidates, and they were just finding any Tom, Dick, and Harry, shoving them left, right, and center just to avoid the embarrassment of not having 125 candidates. And 2 of those ridings, well, they took Julie White and Charles Robert. There were 2 ridings in the region of Quebec and said, here, you guys go there. We have no choice. And we commented on that. I don't know if you guys remember. We were wondering if your senior officials, if your top advisors are not in the bus with you during the campaign, advising you during the campaign, then who is advising you? Who's telling you what to do in this campaign if your top advisors aren't with you because you sent them to campaign because you were too embarrassed to not have candidates? In any case, everyone knew that once this campaign would be over, Julie White and Charles Robert would just go back to their job because that's where they belong. They have advised premiers, party leaders. They've been there for a while. They know what they're doing, and they're good at what they're doing. Now, you want to take the party a different direction? Is it normal to bring new faces? Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And if that's the case, then okay, get rid of them and bring new faces, other competent people that may help you get to where you want to get to. But the way that the article was written, it was as though Julie White was leaving Dominique Anglade's cabinet because apparently they're forcing Charles Robert out as well. That's how I understood it. I could be wrong here. Go and check out the article from Tommy Chouinard in La Presse. The way I understood it was that Julie White is leaving because they're forcing Charles Robert out. So probably she's like, what the hell's going on over here? I'm out. If you guys are forcing this guy out, then goodbye. Again, mind you, the people responsible for this defeat are still in place. Now, Dominique Anglade may attempt to keep these people close to her and in these positions because she wants to, keep some control on what's happening, make sure that, everyone is in line, everyone is in check. The one thing, however, that she will never be able to control and who will ultimately decide her fate is the membership, the members of the party. There's no way you can control those. Those guys, you can't control them. Can't control them. And up until now, there has been 0 meetings with any regional, representation there in the ridings. There hasn't been any meeting with the riding association presidents. Are they buying time? I can agree that this was a huge result, a very bad result, very bad campaign, and you need to take all that in. Maybe you need more time before, but eventually you're going to have these meetings, and it won't be pretty, man. Let me tell you, Those meetings with those members and the riding association presidents will not be pretty. And eventually, and we spoke about this in earlier episodes, she needs to convene a general assembly or a party convention to which she will be subjected to a confidence vote, in which she will be subject to a confidence vote. I hope to God that she doesn't make it there, because based on what I'm seeing, that party convention won't be pretty for Dominique Anglade. So unless she's planning on beefing up her image and proving that she has what it takes to lead the party, and she changes course completely and everyone is just on board, in my point of view, that's a huge task to accomplish. I do not see that happening. I don't see that happening. So she could keep as many people as she wants around her, even though a lot of people aren't happy with these decisions. Ultimately, it gets down to the membership. And there's nothing she could do to keep close tabs on that. Nothing, absolutely nothing. So she can buy as much time as she wants. At the end of the day, she is accountable to the members. And I don't know what she's doing, because all these things that just happened now, plus the things that were already, all that weight that she already carried, is going to determine her fate, I think. They're ultimately going to determine if whether or not she's going to stay on as a leader of the party. So maybe she won't even make it to the party convention. Who knows? This is going to be very interesting. I can assure you that the days and probably weeks going forward, the journalists are going to dig deeper into this story. You know how journalists are. They want to get to the bottom of it. Who did what, who said what, and who decided what. We want to know. I hope to God Marie-Claude Nichols just keeps it cool. Take in the result, accept it, respect it, just be quiet in opposition. Maybe things are going to turn in your favor. I hope. But that doesn't mean that Dominique Anglade is going to get off the hook like that easily. She's going to have to come out with some answer. Eventually, she's going to have to come out of hiding. Eventually, the journalists are going to get to her, and they're going to ask her about this ridiculous decision to eject Marie-Claude Nichols, because from what Enrico Ciccone said, she did not want to accept the positions that she was given. He didn't say that she was, disrespectful. She was yelling. None of that was said. Maybe he was trying to hide that. Maybe that happened and he figured out that I'm not going to go there. I'm just going to go that I'm just going to say that she didn't accept the positions. But if we base ourselves on what we know, he said that the decision was based exclusively on the fact that she did not accept the responsibilities. And we find out today from the journalists that Marie-Claude Nichols was perfectly fine staying in caucus with no responsibility. So why kick her out? What the hell happened? The media is going to want to get to the bottom of this, I can reassure you. So the next couple of days, maybe weeks, we're going to hear a lot more about this. So stay tuned for that. Stay tuned for the other things that we spoke about in other episodes to know if whether or not Dominique Anglade is going to recognize the parties, give them official status, if she's going to allow them to sit without having completed their oath, and what's going to happen with the membership of the party. Let me tell you, there is a lot to unfold there. It won't be an easy beginning of this new session for Dominique Anglade. Stay tuned, everyone. Thank you again for tuning into this episode. Give it a 5-star rating. I'll gladly appreciate it. Trying to grow this channel, trying to grow the community. If you're like me and you enjoy much more the visual content, head on over to YouTube, subscribe to the page, and share the content. And you know what? Let me know what you think. Put some things down in the comments below. Do you agree? Do you not agree? Do you think I'm full of shit? Do you think I'm right? Whatever it is, we accept people's opinions here, man. Come on, let me know what you think, and let's start that conversation. I don't mind. I don't have an issue with that. Thank you all so much. I'll see you all very soon on the next episode. Take care.